It's late at night, you're lying in bed scrolling through home listings, zooming in on kitchens you don't cook in yet, and backyards your kids don't play in yet. The photos are perfectly lit. The captions say things like cozy starter home and great opportunity. The price says something else. You start doing the math in your head. Even with a solid salary, even with decent credit, even with years of doing what you were told to do, the numbers feel like they belong to someone else's life. That's when the quiet thought slips in. Maybe this isn't meant for me anymore. Maybe home ownership, the old American milestone, has slowly turned into a modern fantasy. And the strange part is, nobody officially announced it. It just happened while we were busy trying to keep up. We grew up with a script. Work hard, save up, buy a home, build equity, create stability. It sounded linear, predictable, almost mechanical. Our parents and grandparents treated buying a house as the beginning of adulthood. It wasn't glamorous, it was normal. But somewhere between rising land values, stricter lending after past crises, global investment pouring into local neighborhoods, and wages that didn't quite keep pace, that script started bending. In 2026, the idea of a starter home feels almost ironic. The entry point isn't entry level anymore. It's competitive, leveraged, emotionally draining. The fantasy isn't just about price, it's about access. What makes it more painful is psychological. Homeownership is still marketed as proof that you've made it. When you don't own, it can feel like you're behind, even if your income is respectable, even if you're investing elsewhere, even if you're financially stable by every rational metric. Renting starts to feel temporary, even when it's been a decade. There's a subtle social pressure that whispers, real adults own property. So people stretch, they drain savings, they take on larger mortgages than they're comfortable with. They assume appreciation will bail them out, not because they're reckless, but because they're afraid of being permanently locked out. Zoom out further and you start to see the structural shift. Housing is no longer just shelter, it's an asset class. Large firms buy single-family homes as long-term investments. Short-term rental markets reduce supply. Zoning restrictions limit new construction in high-demand areas. Add inflation, higher building costs, and fluctuating interest rates, and the barrier rises quietly each year. It's not one dramatic spike, it's a steady climb. So by 2026, even six-figure earners in certain cities feel like they're chasing something that keeps moving just out of reach. And here's the deeper layer. The fantasy persists because we anchor our expectations in the past. We compared today's reality to what homes cost 20 or 30 years ago, but the economic landscape has shifted. Back then, income to price ratios were different. Debt burdens were lighter. Competition wasn't global. Today, the same house isn't competing only within a neighborhood. It's competing within a financial ecosystem. When housing behaves like an investment vehicle first and shelter second, ordinary buyers start to feel secondary. But something interesting happens psychologically when a dream feels unattainable. At first, it motivates you. You save more aggressively, you hustle, you research first-time buyer programs. Then, if the gap continues widening, the motivation turns into fatigue. You begin questioning whether the sacrifice is worth it. You start noticing that homeowners aren't automatically relaxed or wealthy. Many are managing repairs, taxes, insurance hikes, and mortgage payments that shape every other decision in their lives. The fantasy promised freedom. The reality sometimes looks like obligation. This is where the narrative gets uncomfortable. Homeownership isn't impossible everywhere. It's not extinct, but the universal assumption that everyone should buy and that buying automatically equals upward mobility is cracking. In some regions, renting and investing the difference may create more flexibility. In others, buying with strong margins still makes sense. The fantasy isn't the house itself, it's the idea that ownership alone guarantees financial security. Security comes from margin, not from a deed. Think about what we're actually chasing when we say we want a home. We're chasing control, stability, a sense that the ground beneath us won't shift. But in a modern economy where jobs change, industries evolve, and cities transform rapidly, tying stability entirely to a property can be risky. True resilience may come from liquidity, diversified assets, adaptable skills, and lower fixed obligations. Yet culturally, those don't photograph as well as a set of house keys on closing day. The powerful realization is this: When a milestone becomes so financially extreme that it dominates your entire economic life, it stops being a foundation and starts being a gamble. Not always a bad gamble, but a concentrated one, and concentration increases both upside and stress. If you buy wisely with breathing room, it can be transformative. If you buy because you're afraid of missing out forever, it can quietly own you. So maybe the conversation in 2026 isn't about whether homeownership is dead or alive. Maybe it's about redefining what progress looks like. Maybe the real shift is understanding that wealth isn't about checking cultural boxes. It's about building options. Options to move, to pivot careers, to invest differently, to live below your means without feeling behind. The fantasy fades when you stop measuring adulthood by square footage. It fades when you realize that financial maturity isn't proven by a mortgage approval letter, but by the strength of your balance sheet and the flexibility of your life. Homeownership may still be right for some, but it's no longer the automatic badge of success it once was. And once you accept that, the pressure eases. You stop chasing a symbol and start designing a strategy. In 2026, that shift from owning to optimizing, from tradition to intentionality, is what turns a fading fantasy into a smarter financial reality.